All right, we'll get this party started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first session here at Innovate for 2022. My name is Brett Moffat. I'm a solutions architect for Cyrusson down in Australia. We'll be talking today about managing a service desk remotely and the lessons that we've learned through the last few years and where we're going on from here. Slides working? Yes, cool. Before we get into it, just some housekeeping about what's going on. All of these conference sessions will be recorded and available after the conference. So watch out for those links as they come through. After this session, there'll be a 30-minute live Q&A session in the lounges. So any questions that you have or discussions that you want to be able to start up, we can have a chat about that after this session. And throughout the day, we'll also have the open floor lounge that's available for anyone to ask any question about IT service management or any of the Cyrusson tools. There'll be Cyrusson employees coming and going throughout the day to be able to answer any of your questions. So the agenda here for this particular session, we're going to have a look at that new way of working. What does it mean for us as far as service desk analysts and service desk managers are concerned? And some of the key pieces that are important to it: communication, team building, mental health. How do we report and gather good metrics about our success rate? What software and tools we should be using, and then of course continual improvement to innovate into this new way of working. All right, so I want to set the scene a bit. And back in August of 2020, Forbes reported in an article that of the people that they spoke to, 50% said that even after it is safe to return to the office, when there's a vaccine or after the pandemic subsides, they'd still prefer a combination of some days in the office and some days working from home. 23% said they would like to continue to work full-time from home, and only 25% of respondents said they wanted to return full-time to the office. And since this report back in 2020, we've seen these numbers actually bear out across all industries. More people wanting to work that hybrid approach of some time in the office and some time working from home. So hybrid working is here to stay. So what are the changes from a support analyst perspective and a manager's perspective on the sort of changes that we need to make from our end for our customers? Also, as service desk managers and team leaders, how do we ensure our staff are happy and delivering excellent customer service? Well, the best place to start to answer these questions is to get a better understanding as to why a hybrid working environment is so popular. The biggest one is definitely that work-life balance. Being able to not just work, but also take care of things like doctor's appointments, school drop-off or pick-up with school-age kids, tradespeople coming to the house to fix the boiler or the dry cleaning, picking up dry cleaning, all of those sorts of things. Amazon deliveries, we know we're all getting so many more, and lots of other things that we do in our time. Back in 2017, it was estimated that in the US, $125 to $190 billion a year was spent on healthcare just for physiological problems of burnt out employees. And that was borne out in a Harvard Business Review study there. So we're talking about a huge amount of money and cost to society and also the business of people burning out and not having a good work-life balance. So that's where it's really driving end users and all employees to want to be able to balance that hybrid environment quite a lot. The next big thing for us and for some people there is it's being easier to focus and yet harder to collaborate. So in that Forbes report, just shy of half the respondents said it was easier to focus and meet deadlines when working from home because there was less distractions and they were generally happier. But having said that, 33% of the respondents found it difficult to work on stuff that requires focused thinking because it was harder to get motivated, harder to kick off in the day without a team around you, without a set purpose. However, employees are having a much harder time with the sorts of work and activities that benefit from face-to-face communication. Nearly half of the respondents of the survey said work that requires collaborating with others is more difficult when working from home, and people find it harder to build connections with co-workers. So interacting with one's team is more difficult with an increased need for scheduled meetings rather than being able to just yell at someone across the office. So having to actually set those meetings up in time to be able to talk about things rather than just drop by someone's desk as you walk past. So the things that are helping us get more work done are also the sorts of things that are standing in the way of us collaborating and joining together. So it's a real challenge that we've got, not just from an employee perspective, but from a support perspective as well. And then we've seen and that's why we've seen a lot of shift to the collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams. So we see a mix of people wanting to work from home and the office, depending on the personality, the industry, the role, the organisation, the location, those sorts of things. So we're seeing that real mix. Avoiding the commute is a really big one too. The average worker spends an hour on commuting every workday. At first, I thought this figure was hard to believe because depending on the city you live in and where you live, surely it has an impact. But remarkably, a 1 hour commute has remained more or less stable for recorded human history, a finding known as Machete's Law. But in short, cities grow and expand in such a way that the majority of people are within a 1 hour commute of the city centre. This stretches back even to Roman times, and it's just as transport got faster and more ubiquitous, cities spread out further. Now, that's not to say that some of us don't have a much longer commute. One person in the Forbes survey said they ordinarily have a 120 mile or 193 kilometre daily commute for their round trip to work. Now, that's a heck of a drive every single day. Having now a spare 3 to 4 hours a day in their life is really significant out of a 24-hour day. So what does that mean for our customers? Well, as our customers, as our support end users are not commuting at the start and the end of their days, they're often working during that time. This means that the end users are starting earlier and finishing later than they normally would. Their first coffee was usually taken on the train on the way to work or in the car, but now they're checking their emails or logging in first thing in the morning. So what does that mean for support and support calls? It really means that support calls are going to be coming in earlier as users start their day, but also later because they're not needing to commute at the end of the day. So with a combination of that work-life balance and commute times, we're seeing people working, the people's work hours shifting from a solid block of time to working sporadically throughout the day, even through to quite late at night time. Combine this with the new collaboration tools and way of working, the support of all of this is a new challenge to us in support teams. As support people, we're so used to customers bringing in their machines or having physical access to their machines for us to support them. Now we're relying on end users to do a lot of that physical work, or where once we would do it for them. However, end users are now in the same boat as the rest of us, and they're starting to see that most end users are seeing the advantages and benefits of remote controlling into their workstations. So previously, they may have had some hang-ups about you remoting into their system, and they actually wanted you to appear at their desk and actually show them what to do. But now that we're not in that, we can see that now that end users are having to deal with that just like we are, they're starting to see the benefits of being able to have someone remote control into their system. The biggest shift there is the fact that the user's computer is actually sitting in their own home, and they have more of a feeling of a personal ownership of that device that they have in front of them. So they're more invested in actually making sure that this works and working with the support team to actually make that problem go away and fix their fix the problem that they're having as far as their IT work is concerned. But clear and concise communication is absolutely vital when dealing with end users. So we've learnt about this from the past. Being involved in IT service management for as long as I have been, IT service desk offshoring was a huge market trend in the early 2000s, and we're still seeing it ebb and flow today. We saw a huge number of industries and many large companies looking to offshore all of their service desks to be able to save costs. However, while offshoring of support does continue across industries, many organizations have had a swing in the opposite direction due to common issues with communication with offshore IT support, such as things like company knowledge or local context, cultural differences across their language barrier, and of course staff turnover. In a new hybrid working environment for IT staff, it is key for service desk managers to ensure that their staff are trained and coached to not fall into the traps of failed offshore support projects like we had in the early 2000s. We need to make sure that staff have time allocated to build rapport with end users and provide a sympathetic approach to understanding end users' needs, so that the support analysts can better tailor their approach to achieve satisfaction for the end user. We can do this by putting lead back into leadership. Communication with end users is critical to customer success, but communication from management to analyst and in between analysts is key to a happy and productive team. The major piece that is lost when working in a hybrid environment is that face-to-face and non-verbal communications. Humans are used to many other modes of communication other than that of just pure language. Facial expression, body posture, general demeanor cannot be communicated in words, either written or spoken. Often, as a manager or a leader of a team, you may be able to visually see when one of your colleagues or staff is having trouble or is struggling just by the way they look or the way they respond to a question. So how do we compensate for that lack of face-to-face communication when people are not all in the office at the same time? Well, use video. And we've seen a huge swing towards video in the last few years. Making it a team agreement that everyone turn on their cameras when in a call is important, not only to increase the effectiveness of communication, but also to maybe detect issues before they become a hindrance. This may cost the organisation some money to provide staff with good cameras, backdrops or green screens, whatever. But whatever can help staff feel comfortable with turning on their video feed. I know that some parents and so forth don't like turning on their camera inside their own home. They don't want to be able to show people what's going on in their background. So being able to provide a green screen or a small area that they can sit in their house and cover up the background really does help with people being able to feel comfortable turning on their cameras. The visual aspect of communication really feeds onto the next point, and that is to practice using empathy as much as possible. Not just leadership to staff, but also staff to leadership, and also staff to staff, so colleagues between each other. We're all different people, and we all have different lives. Our unique human experiences makes us different from each other, and those differences make us an effective team. This difference should be celebrated, but it can often seem unfair to someone that someone in the team gets to start later or finish earlier or gets to work under different conditions. Encouraging each other to try and understand that other people's perspectives and to remember that there may be more going on in the background of someone's life that may or may not have to do with their employment, but may very well impact other aspects of their life, including their employment. It's really important to reinforce that we're all part of the same team, and each team member has a role to play, no matter how different that role is. No two roles are the same. So really having that individualized approach. As a leader, this individualism means it needs to be factored into how we approach our team members by providing an individualized approach to all circumstances. Some staff might need more equipment, say monitors or special keyboards or mice, and others might need flexible working hours. From a manager's perspective, I want to make sure that people know that it's okay to say no to one person and yes to another. One set of rules need not apply to the entire team. Having said that, knowing that there are some baseline expectations required of the entire team is important. So keeping those clear expectations available and known to staff is critical. The best way to do that is to have a standard set of operating procedures, or SOP. The best way to drive engagement of these standard operating procedures is to join analyst staff on support calls. So as a service desk manager, actually joining on those calls when they're maybe on the tricky side, or even just to let staff know that if they do get caught up on a call, just to allow them to be able to have a second set of eyes or ears on a particular issue to help deflect and diffuse situations if there's an upset or difficult customer involved, or just if the getting a different perspective on the issue that's appearing. Now, I know that does sound time consuming, so it's important to spend your leadership time wisely. As a leader of a service desk, you're in a unique position to know more of the bigger picture of the team than anyone else in the team. So if you know that a particular team member is dealing with sick children or is in personal strife or just struggling at the moment, refocus, help and support their direction for a period of time. To help out, encourage other teammates to offer to join calls also. This not only supports the analyst, but also increases the feeling of teamwork across the group by having shared experiences and letting each other know that they're not alone with support calls. Across the team, of course, team building has always been a big part of service desk. So team building used to look like, company retreats and trust falls and all sorts of team challenges. Nowadays, we need to come up with other ways of getting a team involved in those shared experiences. A lot of it's going to be online, and having that camera turned on is key to be able to do that and build that rapport. One of the things that I have done here in this region to promote team building is a type of meeting that I call a water cooler meeting. It's the kind of meeting that you would have if you were just meeting up around the water cooler. Meetings that have no agenda, they're not about work, just what everybody else, what else is going on in people's lives, what book are they reading, the latest episode of whatever TV show that they're watching. It is really important just to be able to have those kinds of times that people can get together and just chat about anything rather than it always being focused on work. We can also do some team building exercises, but do them online instead. So some examples that we here at Cyrus have done are virtual escape rooms. There's actually escape rooms that you can do online that have different challenging questions to be able to get out of that room. We even did one that was cooking lessons. We sent out a box of ingredients and so forth, and we all got together and cooked something. Or you could, encourage someone to teach cooking to somebody else, the rest of the team, sorry. Quiz nights are always a good one. Happy hours, one of my favorites. And one of the most recent ones that we did here was around cocktail making. So we sent out a bunch of ingredients. Doesn't have to be alcoholic, can be what we call mocktails, fruit juices and so forth, to be able to come up with different things and have someone leading everyone on about tasting what those cocktails taste like. So team building is really important. Team building then leads on to something that I think is really important, especially in today's area, which is around that mental health. Mental health of our staff really does take a hit, and has taken a hit during this time of isolation, lack of routine, being caught up in lockdown, and you know, actually potentially getting sick from it, their kids being sick, maybe some medical bills. Lots of mental health issues have come from the last few years. And being in isolation, being a human beings are supposed to be around other people. So really focusing on knowing your staff's mental health and watching out for these signs. One of the best things you can do to from a management perspective, looking at your staff and interacting with your staff, but even interacting with your colleagues, is just asking a simple question of, are you okay? And then actually listening to their response, actually hearing what they've got to say, probing for deeper questions, becoming more engaged and personally engaged in what's going on in that person's life. And just to be able to hear that somebody cares and wants to talk about it can make a huge impact on people's lives. I personally have been on what's called a mental health first aid training, and that's how to be able to start these sorts of conversations, how to support someone through a crisis or through a bad sort of time. Across many countries have this kind of training, and I fully encourage people to go and have a look at it. In the US, there's one called mentalhealthfirstaid.org. Here in the UK, here in Australia, but also in the UK and New Zealand, St John's Ambulance also holds one. That's the course that I did. It was a 2-day course, and was really, really worth it. And in Canada, there's the Mental Health Commission there as well. So keeping an eye on how people are responding, how people are changing their moods over time, visually being able to see if someone is looking tired or worn out or just not engaged, can really indicate how their mental health is going. And also realizing that there is such thing as too much work. So I know that when I started working from home, when I started working with Cyrus here 7 years ago, I all of a sudden lost a 1.5 hour commute to work and a 1.5 hour commute home from work. So bonus, I get to work another 3 hours a day. However, when I finished those 3 hours, I was home. There wasn't a commute. There wasn't that time to decompress from the day. So all of a sudden I was really, really overworked, or I felt that I was really, really overworked. The caffeine addiction kicked in, and you know, I really pushed through, and felt that things were completely spiraling out of control. So being able to make sure that you set expectations of your staff, that they don't do too much work, that they're not working ridiculous hours, that they feel that they have to prove themselves to have the privilege of working from home. So definitely keep an eye on that from a mental health perspective, but also from a managerial perspective, to making sure that your end users or your analysts, your staff members, aren't burning themselves out. So how do we then measure these outputs? How do we know that someone is performing well, we're doing all right working from home, we don't need to counsel someone or help them out wherever we need to? We start talking about different types of metrics and reporting. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of different examples around metrics and reporting and what works and what doesn't, because it's all individual depending on the industry that you're in, depending on your staff, depending on your end users, depending on the times of day that tickets are coming in, all of those sorts of things. What is important is that you pick those metrics and you make it clear that they're the metrics that you're reporting on, and what the outcome of those metrics are going to be. However, there is something called Goddards Law, and that is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. So if you all of a sudden say to people, we're going to measure performance on how many tickets you get through in a day, people are just going to grab tickets and close them off willy-nilly, not actually spend the time to actually see whether or not that customer is satisfied. So we may have analysts that are chewing through 100 tickets a day, but the customers are really, really unhappy at the back end of it. But their green metric looks fantastic. We're all good to go. So be very careful about that. One of the greatest examples, I think, in the last 3 years of Goddards Law coming out is tracking software on people's computers. So managers putting tracking software on the computer to see how engaged the user is, whether they're at their keyboard, all of those sorts of things. And Goddards Law then comes up and people do tricks like being able to put their mouse on top of their watch with a second hand, so it's continually moving that whole time while they go off and watch a TV show. So much so that there's actually products on the market now called mouse jigglers and clickers that will randomly move the mouse around the screen, just plugged into a USB port. So we're seeing Goddards Law there come into practice. So make sure that your metrics and anything that you're reporting on, people are aware of what's going to, of what's expected. And that's where we come back to that standard operating procedures that we have there. But also that, as I said earlier, that everyone's different. Personally, I think one of the best metrics for reporting is about customer satisfaction. Yes, if one analyst only gets through 2 or 3 tickets in a day, that may be a lot lower than the rest of the team, but customers may be requesting that person because they've got those extra tricky questions, those longer answers, the more difficult customers that need their hand held through a process a lot more than other customers. So, being aware that analysts are all individuals and how they're responding to their tickets are also very individual. So trying not to lump them all into the one basket. So now we're talking about software and tools. Software and tools that the analysts need to be able to do their job. Okay, making sure that they've got a decent keyboard, a decent mouse, a web-based ITSM platform, making sure that they can get to that from wherever. Having a console or a thick client installed on a machine becomes quite difficult because we then have to install that software. If that computer dies, we have to replace it with a corporate laptop rather than them being able to just duck down to the local Best Buy or JB Hi-Fi and pick up a new computer and then get straight back into it. Those clear processes of how to use that platform, making sure that we know that the classification values are set correctly, or that we have a clear resolution category and comment at the end of everything, because that's what we're going to be using for working out what's going on from a tracking and trend perspective. Setting up a self-service portal. If you've not set up a self-service portal, now's the time. With end users working from home more, working those strange hours, like we said before about with their lack of commute and their work-life balance, lots of people I've seen taking their kids to school in the morning, starting at 10 o'clock in the morning, being able to work through till 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, pick their kids up, make dinner, put them to bed, and then working through till midnight. Well, if the service desk isn't available and they need their password reset, or they need a new access provided, or they need something else from the service desk, instead of waiting for that next day, having that self-service portal available for them to be able to raise that request absolutely helps out and gets the ball rolling at least, if not, then fully automated. And automation using tools such as artificial intelligence to be able to work out what's going on as far as that ticket is concerned, but also things like PowerShell scripting or Power Automate, all of those pieces. Any of those processes, those company processes that are very repeatable, we can look to talk into the automation of that process to allow end users to be able to self-serve whenever they want, whenever they're working. Next, around more around the tools, is the physical space that our analysts are actually working in. Having a dedicated workspace, having a desk to be able to work to. If they have to pack up their laptop every single night because it's on a kitchen table, those sorts of things can be really disruptive, and they don't feel that they're in a comfortable space to be able to work. So being able to buy someone a desk environment that they can set up on, have everything laid out exactly how they want to, and be able to step into work as soon as they need to, is a great way of being able to do that. A good quality headset, knowing that you've got good microphones, good headsets, that the end users that are hearing us can hear us nice and clearly, and maybe noise cancelling because of things going on in the background, that we can really focus on it. So there are lots of good quality headsets out there on the market. A good quality chair. You know, lots of people that went to work from home are just working from the kitchen bar stool, or the kitchen chairs, which were not designed to be sat in for 8 hours at a time. So being able to purchase chairs for ergonomic chairs for staff to be able to sit in, make sure that they're comfortable and they're not going to be injured while they're working. Having multiple monitors. I, for one, really enjoy being able to have multiple monitors, and we've seen different organizations have more and more monitors over time, just to be able to compartmentalize different pieces of work that we're working on as we're going along. It makes people so much more efficient. Of course, ergonomic keyboards. Different people like different touch and feel of keyboards. I prefer the bent keyboards. It all depends on the individual. And again, not being able to just lump a single set of standard hardware in front of everybody, instead keeping that individualized and making sure that it is fit for purpose, that that person does need a particular mouse or a particular sized keyboard to make them feel comfortable and be more engaged in their work and more productive. So the next really big question that I hear of service desk managers out there is saying, hey, that's great, but where do we get all this money from? And I found this really interesting article here on the 8 benefits of a hybrid workspace. And the cost of people working from the office is absolutely huge. So being able to break down for 100% fixed people, so they've got a desk in the office, that's your desk, that's your personal desk, and you come in every single day, and you have 1,000 assigned seats. So this is based on a company of 1,000 people. Not having flexible seats, having to have that ratio of 1 to 1, based on $10,000 per seat per year, which is actually quite conservative depending on where you live. The real estate costs can be anywhere up to $10 million. Well, if we move down that to a 2 to 1, so a 10% fixed and 90% flexible arrangement in the actual office space, we nearly half our annual real estate costs. So that's $5,500 per person per year that we can spend on other products for them, such as desks and chairs and microphones and headsets and whatever else they need to be able to work from home. Now, it's going to cost a heck of a lot less than that to be able to set someone up with some decent equipment that they need. And again, remember, this is per year. So a lot of things like chairs or headphones and microphones don't wear out every single year. So there is quite a cost saving there from the real estate side of things that can then be put into individual users. So the next big piece is around the innovation, all right, a continuous improvement that goes on with it. So innovating your processes. What do those processes look like? Is our standard operating procedures working for us? Are these metrics working for us? Are we able to actually continue with this going forward? Is it working for us? If it's not, then change, improve, iterate through all of those items. Look to automate those repeatable processes one at a time. Get them working, get them confirmed, get them in front of the users so they can actually use what's going on. So don't forget that continuous improvement as part of ITIL, and really start to innovate the way that you're working from home. All right, so that's the end of it. Thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to hear me waffle on about being able to work from home and managing the service desk from home. I'll now be available over in the Q&A lounge for a little while here. So if you do have any questions or follow-ups that you want to on this, please let me know. Please feel free to come over there and have a chat. I'm always available via email after the event, also if you can't attend live here today. And again, the open floor is available for the rest of the day if you want to be able to drop by there as well. So thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you've enjoyed this session.